Journey with Dr. Bartholomew Orr, pastor, author, husband, family man, and thought leader as he encounters other believers who have impacted the world with their God-given gifts and talents. Let's meet the people who are moving the church forward with their faith, wisdom, direction, and innovation. It's spiritual, it's motivational, it's Church Forward.
Hey, welcome to another Church Forward conversation as we chronicle the stories and lifestyle of some of the world's most innovative people who will share how their faith, wisdom, and direction help them to live lives that are changing lives and making a difference in these unprecedented times. And I'm thankful today to be here with, oh my goodness, a long time, right. A long time buddy, Travis Moody. How are you doing, Travis?
I'm doing great. I so appreciate you having me on your show.
Well, I appreciate this opportunity, and my goodness, how many years has it been? We go back.
It's been over 12 years. I would say 13 years.
Wow. And so what are you up to these days?
So now I just launched a new nonprofit called Forward Memphis, ironically, to moving people forward. So I love what you're doing, and yeah, that's what we want to do too, is help people move forward.
All right. So tell us a little bit about Travis Moody. Bring us up to speed. Who is Travis Moody?
Okay, so I'm from Memphis, South Memphis, proud graduate of Hamilton High School.
All right. What year?
1985.
Okay.
Yeah, so love Hamilton. Went to Georgia Tech on football scholarship, graduated, worked as an engineer for some years, went back and got an MBA at Duke, and worked in the corporate world for most of my life until I felt God calling me to ministry.
And I still remember, I mean, you feeling tugged to be in ministry, and really, I mean, even back then, Travis, I must say I was impressed, because oftentimes when people feel called to ministry, the first thing is, okay, what church am I going to pastor?
Right.
But when you felt called to ministry, you felt that God was doing what?
Right. Well, I felt God wanted me to help people financially. And I thought there were so many people that were struggling with debt and not prepared financially. And I felt God got me out of a bad financial situation so that I can be a blessing to other people.
Wow. So you have gone from just, in terms of just ministry, because you used to coach people, I guess, Yeah,
so I started out with Crown Financial Ministry when we first met. I was working with them and helping churches teach financial principles. And I started coaching people and created my own consulting, helping people in churches teach financial principles. But when and most of the calls I got were from, larger churches. A lot of them were suburban churches. But when I started going into inner city churches, that's when I started really feeling like, man, I need to do something different. I never, when I go into Bellevue or Second Press, there was no issue around predatory lending. There was no payday loans. But when I went to South Memphis and Orange Mound and Hickory Hill, I would say it could be half the congregation in predatory lending. And so,
all right, now explain it. Predatory lending, what?
So a predatory loan is most people, it's either a payday loan or a title loan. But the difference it's a high interest loan. They can charge up to 459% interest in the state of Tennessee. So it's like once you're in it, it's a cycle that keeps you in it, and they're predatory because they're targeting certain people. And I remember when I was driving from the Life Church down Winchester to go to Hickory Hill to meet with the team at New Direction. I mean, the closer I got to New Direction, the blacker and browner the people became, the more payday loans and title loans.
Wow.
Because there are none in Collierville or Germantown. They were surrounded. So here I get to New Direction, and I'm surrounded by two of the best churches in Memphis. World Overcomers, New Direction. They're surrounded by predatory lenders. And so that frustrated me enough to say, we got to do something about this.
Really, people are a lot of times living payday to payday. And just, that old expression, just one paycheck away from homelessness, is a reality for so many different people.
Right. And that's what we're saying, is that the people who are going through payday loans, they're normal people. They're nurses and police officers, or they work at FedEx, and they earn income, $40,000 or $50,000 to $80,000. But the problem is, once they're living paycheck to paycheck, and when something stops or an emergency happens, they get behind the ball.
I don't know if people even notice it, but on credit card statements, they literally have to disclose now, if you pay the minimum payment, this is how long you're going to be paying for this credit card to be paid off.
Right. Well, the problem is, if you're in an emergency, you're not looking at any of that.
No.
Almost everyone that we talk to who has a high interest rate, they're paying 400%. They don't even know what the rate is. They just know that they needed the money and they got it. And so what we're trying to do is provide a pathway out of that through providing some coaching, but also access to money up to $5,000 to get out of the situation.
Okay, and I know we're getting ahead of ourselves. I haven't even started looking at my paper yet, man. But because really, when you say 500%, they're literally paying back 4 times as much as what they have borrowed.
Yes. So if somebody borrowed $1,000 over a year, they're going to pay back almost $5,000.
Yeah.
And so that is, typically with a normal loan, if you borrow $1,000, you pay back $1,100 in interest. But this is not true in the payday loans. It is very expensive.
Wow.
But again, the people get it because there's no credit check, and the banks won't give them any money.
All right. So 3 words to describe yourself. What would they be?
Nouns are adjectives. Let me see. I would say coach.
Okay.
Caring and productive.
I like that. And you grew up in South Memphis.
Yes.
When did you come to know Christ?
So I went to a church called Pentecostal Missionary Baptist Church, still over on Norris Road. My mom still is a member there. And I guess it was in 76, so I must have been 9 years old when they put me on a moaning bench.
Oh, wow.
Didn't really know why my mom and dad were putting me on this bench. But during that time, it was kind of revival and different preachers. But I remember, the preacher talking about faith, and it stirred something in my heart, even at 9. And I made a commitment at 9 years old.
That's all right. Has it been a consistent walk with the Lord, would you say, or?
It's been a growing walk, because I would say, teenagers' years was rough, and but I would say in college is when I really started to make a decision to live committed. So by the end of my college, I was committing to living like a Christ-like life. And I got married after that, and we've been growing ever since. That's
all right. Mm-hmm. And the Moody family, my goodness, y'all have been a staple family in this community for a long time. Some of my favorite members here at Brown are Moody's, and so faith. I mean, in terms of just generation after generation, that's a part of your heritage as well.
Yes, yeah. Grew up in a Christian household. The families are believers, and we're spread out in churches all over this area. Yeah, so I was fortunate to be growing up in a really good family with a mom and dad that really loved God and loved us. Now,
ministry, and especially as it relates to finances, I know you mentioned that it was coming out of your own, I guess, financial difficulty that you start feeling God calling you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so so after, we found ourselves living in Atlanta. I was working in the corporate world, but found ourselves with over $100,000 in debt, not including a big house that we couldn't afford, and really went through a struggle with, I'd been going to church all my life and hear how God was going to bless me, and it didn't seem like He was blessing me. So I struggled. I was mad at God. I'm thinking, what happened? And so we went to a class similar to what you guys do here to learn about money. And I didn't want to go. My wife drugged me to this class. But I went to that class, and I realized I've been in church all my life, and I didn't know that God had so much to say about money. The only thing I knew was how to handle 10%. and no one ever taught me how to handle the 90%.
I like that.
And so we put together a plan, and we paid off $100,000 in debt over 3 years, and that really, I realized that God allowed us to go through that to give us His ministry.
You said something powerful. I want you to kind of unpack it just a little bit, because like you said, a lot of folks, it's all about the tithe. It's all about having faith to really sacrifice or to give back the 10%. But you're saying you really need faith to manage the 90%.
Right. I mean, it takes faith. You have to, because there are principles. And I mean, you have to follow principles in order to get the blessings. And many of us want the blessings without the principles, and it doesn't work. And I mean, God talks about, how can I trust you with true riches if I can't trust you with money? And so we realized, again, I didn't know that the Bible talked about not co-signing for my mama's car. I didn't know that the Bible talked about that. And
oh, no, come on now. It's mama. Surely I can co-sign for mama's loan.
But how to, diversify your investments. Those are practical things that the Bible teaches that I didn't know coming up.
And I know I was joking about that, but you are absolutely right. Proverb talks about, not co-signing.
Right.
And my goodness, how many families have fallen out over the fact, and oftentimes it's the other way around, mama co-signing for
or grandmama.
Or grandmama co-signing for the child's loan, only for that child to default and walk away, leaving them to carry that load.
Right.
Yeah. So look, you mamas out there, and my goodness, everybody loves to have the perfect mama for Mother's Day that's got to give. But sometimes you have to know when to set the boundaries, even so that they can grow.
Right, and that's what we're trying to help people is understand boundaries. What a budget or a spending plan is really just a boundary. It's really saying that you're committing to handling money God's way, and that's what we're trying to get people to do, because that's a better life. When you have money saved, life is better. And, there's a scripture that says, the rich, the righteous have money and saved up.
Right.
Well, the wicked spend everything they get.
Spend everything that they have.
And so, even though it feels good to go ahead and spend that money, it doesn't feel good when you don't have any.
All right. Now, our forward is faith, wisdom, and direction. Mm-hmm. Tell me about Memphis Forward.
So Forward Memphis, it's about helping people move forward financially.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, we want to provide a pathway out of payday loans, out of predatory lending. And at the end, what we would hope people to do is move forward, meaning that they get out of debt, they become homeowners, business owners, investment owners, and become able to live a generous and a prosperous life. So,
okay. So it is really teaching them the principles, helping them to see what put them in the shape that they're in, but actually giving them a way to move forward.
So the key is not only coaching, we provide coaching, and we provide access to capital that can fix their situation. And many times, a lot of the people we partner with are churches who, someone gets their lights being cut off, or they're getting evicted. They go to the church for money, but without coaching, it's just putting a Band-Aid on it, because next month they still need it.
Yeah.
What we do is provide a sustainable solution, and it always requires skin in the game for the person. And I have to be honest, many people don't want that. They want money, but if you talk about cutting out cable, I need to see all 2,000 channels, and that's hard for us.
Wait, so y'all actually get into the weeds of it all?
Yes.
In terms of what's going on, where the funds are going.
Right. Because again, we don't want to put a Band-Aid. What we want to do is come up with a sustainable solution. And because if you just wrote a check for $500 to get the lights cut off, next month they're back in the same situation.
So how can churches partner with you all?
So what we do is basically we're anybody who comes to the church for benevolence, we partner with them to coach. So the churches send them to us. We go through the details. We get their all their income. We get their bank statements. We come up with here's where the money is. For instance, there was a family that we talked to last week. They were earning $5,000, but they were spending $6,500. And so they couldn't afford to pay $900 a month for a car. It's just not going to add up. Even if we had given them the money to get the car to repossession, we thought, no, it's better to let that car go. And that's hard for someone to hear, but we got to love them enough to tell them the truth.
Wow. All right, but wouldn't that mess with their credit?
The credit is already, the credit score is less than 600. So when you got a 500 credit score, that's not your concern. You're not going to go any lower. It's not like, and if you had an 800 credit score, you wouldn't be talking to us.
Okay.
So most of the people are talking to us. Again, this is the reason why they can't get a bank loan is because their credit score is under 600.
Okay.
So we're not concerned with the credit score at this time. What we do is through our loan, it allows them to actually build their credit. But we're trying to get them out of the bad financial situation.
Wow. All right. So wisdom. What wisdom do you have for young black people who want to be successful with their finances? And my goodness, look, I would just say young people, period. because these days, I think the mindset is the same all the way across the board, it seems like.
Yeah, because young is relative now.
Yes.
Because we typically see people that are, in their 20s to in their 50s. And so here's what I would tell is, what we've coached a lot of people. What I'm starting to see is certain cars that people who come to us all have certain cars. The same, I almost can predict it. Like, what kind of car do you have? It is one of these brands. And it's like those brands are targeting black people to make us feel a certain way. If we feel like if we have this car, we've made it. And so I'm not saying everybody with a fancy car is broke. I'm just saying it seems like everybody who's broke has a fancy car.
All right. It's not on here, but go on. What other cars?
All right. So they're either Mercedes.
Okay.
Dodge Charger, Dodge Challenger, and Infiniti.
Wow.
Those are the four that I see them. It's almost, and I don't know why, but, we were talking with someone and, she works at a manufacturing plant and makes, $45,000, $50,000 a year. But for some reason, it made sense to her to have a $900 Dodge Charger car note. It made perfect sense to her.
Yeah.
And so what we're fighting, the biggest challenge that we have is helping to change the mindset of black people that does not define you. That's the hardest thing. That's my hardest challenge.
And you mentioned the numbers just, they don't lie. Oftentimes, even when it comes to percentage, you can almost look at how much percent of your net spendable money is going toward the automobile. Yeah. Because the other one would be many times people are living above their means as it relates to their actual mortgage or a house note. So
there's really three decisions that put most of us in trouble.
All right.
If our young people can make good decisions on these three things, typically.
Okay, what else?
So the car, the house, where they live, where they drive, and how they educate. So for the car, what I recommend is staying under 7% of your gross monthly payment, under 7%. For a house, under 20%. And for
now come on, Travis.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Look. Because when people hear that, and let's give them some real numbers.
Okay, let's say you earn $5,000 a month, or $60,000 a year. If you had a car note of $350, I think you'll be fine. But if you have a car note of $900, and again, car note, and if you had a rent of $1,000, I think you'll be fine. But what happens if your car note is $900 and you're paying $2,300 in rent?
Well,
you can preach all you want on tithe. Right. They're not going to bring that other 10% because it's gone.
And $60,000 sounds like a large enough salary that most people in their mind are thinking, okay, if I'm making $60,000, I should be able to afford a $900 car payment, but the reality of it is, it's not just the car payment. It's the oil, it's the gas, it's the upkeep.
It's life. And so again, I give these guidelines because it helps to balance. Okay. And the world is gonna convince you need a bigger house, a bigger car. But if you stick to these guidelines, it allows you to save, because I think you ought to save 10%.
Okay, so car, house, and you mentioned education.
Yes. So many people that we talk to have 6-figure student loan debt. And I know they're waiting on Uncle Joe to get them out of it, President Biden to get them out of it, but it's really crippling our people. And I think there's so much out there for free education. Yeah. That there ought to be that we ought to limit the loans. And so my guideline for student loans, it would be best if you can graduate with none, but it shouldn't exceed your expected first year salary. So if you're going to be a teacher and you're going to make $40,000, you certainly shouldn't have more than $40,000 in student loans.
Wow.
And that's a lot. It's $40,000 a lot.
And yet, even when it comes to student loans, what we see oftentimes is, even with technical schools, you talk about predatory lending. Oftentimes, they'll get students to go in debt to earn some of these degrees that ultimately.
Right. And typically could be free, though. Most of those degrees could be free or almost free in the state of Tennessee. But the thing is, the lifestyle, we get students to get loans to really support their lifestyle.
Right.
And so what I encourage students is, limit what you're doing in student loans. I had, so 4 of my kids are, 4 of my kids are in the 20s.
Okay.
And, but 3 of them are homeowners. And I think it was because when they graduated, my daughter, she wanted to go to the school on the East Coast, and it was going to cost all this money. She got mad at us because we said, we're not paying that. And she said, why don't you pay it, Dad? Y'all have the money. And I had to take my wife and say, listen, baby, it's not good for pastors to strangle their kids. I know we want to. But we told her, listen, we'll pay half of what it costs to go to a state school. If that school on the East Coast you want to go, they need to want you there. They need to be willing to pay, because this is our mom and daddy. Even though we have the money. But I think because of that, when she graduated, her friends were graduating and they were leaving with pulling $60,000, $80,000 in student loans. She just walked off the stage.
Wow.
And so 6 months after graduation, she's buying her first home.
Wow.
When mom and dad didn't have to put a down payment on it, she was able to buy it. That's the difference.
Yeah. All right. So direction. Mm-hmm. What does success look like for Forward Memphis? Forward Memphis.
Yeah. If we're successful and God blesses us, we'll end predatory lending in Memphis. And right now, again, we're the number one. We're the predatory capital of the world. We have more predatory lending stores
in Memphis.
In Memphis does than any other city in the United States.
Wow,
we have the most. And if we are successful, we can end that. And so that's our hope. And we want to partner with churches, because most of the people who go to predatory, they're in a church. 80% of them go to a church, and the church is the first place they're going to come to for money.
And so churches can literally allow you all to be that coach for them, really to be that, I guess, that helping arm for benevolence ministry, if you will.
Right. Yeah, most churches in the area aren't as big as Brown. They don't have a financial awareness team. Most of them have 100 members or less. And so when those churches get most of the financial requests, the small churches. And so what we can do is partner with them to say, hey, let us help you, let us coach them. And in many cases, it stretches their money.
Yeah. All right. Innovation. How have how have you worked to move people forward in their finances?
Yeah, the good thing is most of our coaching is virtual. And so we're able to respond pretty quickly through technology. They complete an application where we respond within 24 hours. and we're able to set them up with a coach as quickly as they can. Because many times if they need emergency, it's not months. They need it in days.
Okay.
And so it allows us to respond pretty quickly. We having a team of coaches available that we can go through and assess. We use technology to we've trained them similar to what Brown does with your coaching mentors. We train them on how to quickly assess where they are and come up with a plan. Okay.
So final words of wisdom and just to the audience about finances, faith, and this whole deal of getting their house in order financially.
Yeah, I love what you guys are doing. I love what you guys are doing with financial awareness. And I would say, just encouraging the listeners is that God wants us to be free. He wants us to have financial peace, and we can have it. And it doesn't mean that we're going to all have Mercedes-Benz and be flying all over the place. Yeah. But we can have a place where we're not worried about how we're going to pay the bills and how we're going to live. And that's where God wants us. And so we're glad to be kind of helping people move forward to that.
Well, you saw the sign when you were coming into church because we had it kind of bold, just asking people, are they covered? What about their life insurance? That is that's another serious area that we have seen as a deficit to our people, that we just don't think future about the need for life insurance. Right. Funeral costs to be covered. And this is, since I'm talking to the money guy, I tell him you need enough to cover LIFE. Clifton Edelin gave me this formula years ago to cover all of your loans so that something happens to you. Yes. You can pay down, whoever is left can take that money, pay all of your debt, and they live debt free. To replace your income, so 10 times or so much of your income, so that they can take it, sit it in there, and the interest can literally keep your take-home pay coming in. Final expense. Right. I always tell folks, put $25,000 for the final expense. They can bury you for $5,000, take the other $20 to go on go on vacation. Hey, that's the best way after the funeral to have a nice vacation. Yeah. But then to educate the children so that you won't have to go in debt in terms of just educating the children.
Yeah. I love that. And I see Clifton at the gym.
Okay.
Hey, but here's the other thing: is I think part of it is you want to leave a legacy.
Yeah.
And we want all those things. I find people have very little. They have very little money and net worth, and so if something happens to them, most of them are in deficit.
Right.
But what we want to encourage people: if you lost your job today, how long can you go?
Right.
We can go 25 or 30 years without, if Social Security doesn't kick in, we can still go another 25 or 30 years at our current lifestyle.
Yeah.
Most people can't go to next week. And so we want to live, and I was just talking to my daughter-in-law yesterday, is that, we want to live a legacy. It's not we have assets, they're to pass on to them, but we also have put our church in our planning. And so I would encourage people, yes, the LIFE, but also think about a legacy. And man, if they've been in Brown all these years and you've poured into them and they love you in this church, man, they ought to leave Brown as a part of their asset, their estate included.
And that would be such a wonderful way, because my goodness, every time a great member passes away, oftentimes all of their tithing, giving passes right along with them. Right. And the church can struggle because, unfortunately, many churches, we too have to budget our money based upon what we're receiving.
Yeah, and that, I think that's unique to the Black church, because when I go into a Second Prayers or Bellevue, they get that those people are passing it on, and their foundations, and we got to get to that point if we really want to impact not just our generation, but the future generation. We got to own some things.
Right.
That means we first got to be out of debt.
Yes.
We got to have some assets. and we got to be investing for the future.
Oh my goodness! We can go on and on about money. We probably should have done 2 shows just to talk about it, because even what you were just saying is something that I think all of the individuals as well as churches need to hear as well. Well, look, let me know what you're thinking, and connect with me on all of our website and social media. Be sure to subscribe to my e-newsletter so that you won't miss out on more ways to live your life outside of the box. Stay tuned for more conversations that will inspire you to do the unthinkable. Thank you so very much.